What if I told you that in the heart of London there is a cemetery where the dead refuse to sleep, where something ancient rises from its crypt, hungry and watching? In 1970, over 100 people stormed the gates of Highgate Cemetery. They weren't looking for ghosts. They came to kill a vampire. Tonight, I'll tell you the story and share a ritual, not for protection, but to summon a spirit who can take revenge in your name, if you dare to try it. Welcome, seekers of secret spells and shadows. I'm Victoria Unikel, artist and media mogul by day and modern witch exorcista by night. Every Thursday, we open the gates to the unknown. Real horror, real rituals. If you are drawn to darkness, hit subscribe and like this video. Now, let's enter the grave. Our story begins in North London in the winter of 1969. 24-year-old David Farrant wasn't just a curious man. He was a seeker, drawn to the occult, the invisible, the shadows that slipped between facts and fear. He founded the British Psychic and Occult Society and believed in documenting the supernatural without exaggeration. But what he found at Highgate Cemetery would haunt him for the rest of his life. At the time, Highgate was a ruin, a once grand Victorian cemetery, now crumbling under ivy, fog, and time. Gravestones toppled, angels broken, mausoleums wide open. The dead no longer felt safe, and neither did the living. People began whispering. Strange things were seen at night. A tall figure over 7 feet wearing a black cloak, glowing red eyes. It didn't walk, it floated. David heard the stories and took notice. So on Christmas Eve 1969, he climbed over the cemetery gate, alone, with only a notebook and a flashlight. He walked among the silent graves, the fog curling low across the path. And then he saw it. A black shape, massive, hovering, watching him. 2 red lights glowed beneath a hooded shadow. David froze. His legs buckled. The temperature dropped suddenly. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. He later wrote, "It was draining me. Not physically, but something deeper, like it wanted to pull the life out of me." He forced himself to recite a protective Kabbalistic prayer in his head, and in an instant, the figure vanished. Shaken but determined, David wrote a letter to the Hampstead and Highgate Express. He asked if anyone else had seen what he had. The answers came quickly. People had seen strange shadows, heard bells in the dead of night, watched red eyes blink from the darkness. Some even mentioned the animals. Dozens of foxes were found dead near the crypts, unmarked except for punctures on their necks. No blood, no explanation. Then came the headlines. Vampire stalks London graveyard. Then came his rival. Sean Manchester, a theatrical self-proclaimed vampire hunter, claimed David was wrong. This wasn't just a ghost. It was a real vampire, a medieval nobleman buried in Highgate in the 18th century. A black magician, awakened, Manchester said, by satanic rituals. He told the press of a girl who saw the figure and became weak, pale. 2 marks on her neck, nightmares. Garlic and holy water had to be placed around her bed. Another woman woke with claw marks on her hand. said something cold had held her in the night. David was skeptical. He didn't believe in moving monsters. But he knew something was there, something ancient, something angry. And then came Friday the 13th of March 1970. After a TV segment aired about the Highgate Vampire, crowds descended on the cemetery. Over 100 people scaled the walls. They brought garlic, crosses, stakes. They ran through the fog, opening tombs, smashing crypts. Teenagers, reporters, paranormal fanatics, a wild mob. David was there, watching from the shadows. He didn't join them. He knew it had gone too far. Manchester entered a crypt and performed an exorcism. No vampire was found, but the damage was real. Coffins lay desecrated, bones disturbed, and the energy darker than before. Later that summer, a woman's burned, headless body was found near one of the tombs. Police suspected black magic. No one was arrested. David kept returning, quietly, privately. He found signs of rituals, black candles, pentagrams, blood. He believed someone or something was feeding off the cast. Then, one night, police caught him in the graveyard. He had a crucifix and wooden stake. He was arrested. The press labeled him the vampire hunter. They mocked him and painted him as a lunatic. But David never backed down. He said, "I was trying to protect the dead, not harm them." Manchester released a book years later. He claimed he'd found the vampire in a basement near Highgate, inside a black coffin. He described red eyes, rotting flesh, and how he drove a stake through its chest, burned the body, scattered the ashes at the crossroads. David didn't believe a word, though. The two men spent decades at accusing each other of fraud, ego, lies. But David had seen something, and it did change him. He became a local legend, feared and mocked, but always believed something still haunted Highgate. Today the cemetery is clean and tidy. Tourists walk the path where the dead once whispered. But even now, some feel a sudden chill on the west side. Some see movement where no one walks. And a few swear they see red eyes in the dark. David Farrant died in 2019. But the thing he saw, it may still be there, waiting. The Highgate Vampire isn't the only tale of undead terror. Let's look at 3 other chilling vampire legends. The Croglin Grange Vampire, England, 1870s. A young woman was attacked in her bedroom by a shriveled figure with glowing eyes. Her brothers pursued the creature to a crypt and found a body with fresh blood on its lips. The Vampire of New Orleans, America, 1930s. Stories of Jacques Saint Germain, a mysterious man who never aged and was never seen eaten. Some claimed he drank wine that smelled like blood. The Haunting of Alnwick Castle, England. In the 12th century, a servant reportedly returned from the dead and fed on villagers. He was hunted down and burned, but his legend remains. Across centuries and continents, vampire tales persist. Maybe they're more than just stories. This is not a spell of peace. This is a ritual to awaken a spirit and send it to punish those who have harmed you. You'll need a black candles, graveyard dirt taken from the grave of someone wronged in life, a mirror, a bowl of water, paper with the name of your enemy, salt. At midnight, light the black candles. Place the grave dirt on the mirror. Burn the enemy's name in the flame. Let the ashes fall into the bowl of water. Now we call on Agramon, an old spirit of fear who brings terror to those who deserve it. Speak these words. Agramon, I awaken you. You were wronged. Now you rise. Hear me. I name your target, enemy's name. Find them. Trouble them. Let them know fear. When justice is done, rest again. Sprinkle salt in a circle around the bowl and mirror. Blow out the candle. Leave the mirror outside overnight, face up. But beware, the spirit may come with its own rage. The Highgate Vampire may be legend, or it may still be watching from the shadows. Would you walk a cemetery alone at night? Would you call something back from the dead just to settle a score? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, my darlings, and come back next week for another terrifying tale. Until then, stay curious, stay protected, and beware the creatures that feed in the dark.